Hi everyone, it's Natalie here. And this is, I think, in terms of videos, this is officially day 5 of the self-compassion with tarot. It's hard to know because I missed a day somewhere in there, literally as a video, and I did my best to practice. So I'm just seeing how disheveled I'm looking right now, and I'll explain that. It's probably obvious by now because I'm sure I put something in all of the stuff. Um, yeah, I still practiced self-compassion even on the day that I missed it, but I'm going to make it up, for a day that's missed and carry on. So, as you probably will have noticed from probably like the thumbnail or something indicated in here, I haven't figured out how I'm going to do it yet. Sven and Einar died today. So the whole day has been focused around self-compassion to do with grief. Probably this is where I'll insert some of the video that I took this morning. You'll see from the way the boys look. I mean, it doesn't really, they look kind of tired maybe, or like a little bit old, but they don't look like rats that are dying. I mean, they look fine, right? And what you can't see is that underneath their little blanket that they have there, they are covered, Sven especially, in a giant tumor that's almost the size of his tiny little body. And you can sort of see on his left shoulder, there's like a little bump that's kind of rosy looking, and that's another tumor there. Einar's tumors were on his rear left leg, like underneath it, so kind of in the groin area. And then he had another one that had developed on the back of his right haunch. And I don't really know what to say about that. They were old rats. I mean, they were nearly 3. They would have been 3 next month. And, they still, up until even this morning, wanted to be snuggled and cuddled and held and loved. And they were completely alert and completely with it, and had a diet this morning completely made up of chocolate chips, which is what I'm feeding them. Because who doesn't love chocolate chips? Yeah. So, yeah, I look like hell because that's what today has been. Is not hell, but just being with that process, and really grieving them, and really taking the time to be with them, but also while I in the process of taking them to the vet and taking them to all to do all of this. The really horrible thing is the vet that I've used for years, that I really trusted, retired in April. And she was out where my mom and dad live in St. Charles County, which means nothing to people who don't live in St. Louis. I don't know why I said that. But so finding a vet to be able to just call up and say, I know we don't know each other and we have no history together, but I need your help. Can you, is there any way you can get us in? And here's the situation. It was really hard. The folks that come and do like in-home pet euthanization could not help us. Really, they couldn't, it was also going to be exorbitantly expensive. The same price as putting, having, my dog or a cat, euthanized at home. And I just couldn't afford that, and I contemplated like, how can I do this? I eventually asked for help from people that I knew, in the cat rescue community. Like, who would you go to? And that was the right way to go, because they sent me to trusted vets that they've worked with for years. So that gave me a connection to be able to call up and say, hi, I know this person from this rescue. And here's my situation. She said that I should give you a call. And even though that vet couldn't help me, they could put me in touch with some local animal hospitals who could. The first one we went to, none of the vets that were present that day felt comfortable about euthanizing an exotic animal. Apparently rats are an exotic animal, which I actually knew. I'm just being sarcastic because it was irritating. And it was really upsetting because, you're ready and it's so hard just to get the courage to do it and to move forward, and then to get that far and be sitting in the parking lot on the phone and they're like, oh, I'm really sorry. We can't do it today because the vet that we have on duty isn't comfortable. That was really hard, but they could at least say, here's a good place to go because we know the vets who are at this animal hospital and this animal hospital. And for anybody who's local, I know that a few of you are, especially I'm thinking of someone who has guinea pigs, Jackson's guinea pigs. It was the one in Kirkwood. It was the St. Louis Animal Emergency Center in Kirkwood. One of the vets there is really accustomed to dealing with small animals, with euthanasia, especially rats, because the vet techs there have had a lot of pet rats, which is apparently not that uncommon. I understand, because the vet techs work with rats a lot in their training. So, God, that tea really is so nice. So she was really good, actually. She was great. They freaked me out on the phone a little bit because the tech, who was very young, bless her heart, on the phone answered, and she said, sometimes we don't normally let people in the room when we do it. And she said it's because we don't sedate them the way that we usually do other animals, and then the needle goes directly into their heart. And so some people can't be with that. I nearly turned around and went home. I was so horrified because I really thought I was turning my completely lucid, completely with it, completely mentally there, but physically degenerating, babies to go to, face a horrible death. I really was afraid that was what was going to happen. I said, are you going to do something so that they're not like thinking that they're just being murdered, because otherwise I could do, that could be done elsewhere. And I mean, come on, I could think of so many other ways that could be handled without having to go that route. Anyway, it turns out that was not what was going to happen. And they were really, really good. They basically, because I was thinking, can they not just give them some happy gas, or something that just kind of like makes them fall asleep, something? They do. And it turns out they do. So they were anesthetized, and kind of put to sleep initially with the gas. Sorry about the lighting. I don't know why that keeps, let me see if I can get a bit more light in here. I'm going to edit this anyway. Okay, that might be more consistent. But yeah, they were, the vet was really good. She was really, really good. They did take them. I had lots of time to say, goodbye to them in the car. I took them in their Snuggie, the way I used to wear them on my neck. And they were so happy. That was the really beautiful and really hard part of that, was that they were really happy. They hadn't, oh, Noah, it's okay. He knows I'm upset. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, Mommy's okay. Yeah, Mama's okay. They knew, the rats were in a good place. Like, they were happy. They ate more chocolate chips in the car. I put them in the Snuggie to take them with me, and just, they sat in my heart space, which is where they would always, where I would always keep them and carry them, and really just sent loving kindness to them and to myself in the car all the way, to the vet. To every one of the ones that I went to today. And yeah, and they were good. And then the people, when I got there, like, I know I was a mess. Like, I was sobbing and crying and stuff when I had to talk to them. And then when I got to the room where the vet came in, to bring them in to me and everything to actually go through it, it really wasn't bad. It really was beautiful, actually. They were really, Sven was very easy, which I knew he would be. Like, he was like, oh, okay, this is where I'm going now, and he just kind of went. Einar fought, and I knew he would. I knew Einar would fight. His little nervous system was geared for, like, where's the emergency? And, always to try and get to me. So it was that one, he took a little bit longer. But, when I kissed him and, like, was petting him and holding his little paw, because, rats will hold hands with you, he knew to go. So I feel like tremendous warmth in my heart, great tenderness and open space in my heart. And I'm sad and I'm grieving. And I also feel completely peaceful and completely at ease. I'm okay with that ebb and flow of emotion. I'm okay with giving myself space to be sad, to grieve, to take care of myself. A lot of it involved just crying, sitting with the boys. Actually, they are in the room here with us right now. You just can't see them. Not because they're in spirit, which is kind of like how that sounds like it's going to go, but because they're lying in state behind me, not in an open casket, but a closed shroud. Because I'm a doula, so I took them home and I bathed them and I cleaned them off, and they I anointed them. They smell really good, and talked to them and talked them through what was happening, before and after, because there's some sentience that's still there. I sense it even now. There's just a little bit of sentience. They need to understand what's happening. Animals do, but it doesn't. Like I found with flowers, the life in a flower, just because it's shriveled, hasn't completely left. It's still nearby. So even when I would do, like, printing flowers and stuff, I don't have any examples immediately available. I used to do a lot of eco printing, but I would always ask the flower, ask the deva in the flower, may I, before plucking the dead, or the shriveled flower bud, because they'll hold on. The flower will hold on and not want to come out. But once you begin asking that particular plant, I found that especially with daylilies, they begin to release all of them. So it's very unlikely that you hold or grab hold of one where they don't come out. But I learned too that if I didn't ask, the likelihood of getting ones that I would only get the ones where the life was utterly gone. It was completely dried out and utterly gone. So they're there. I know they're still kind of hovering close. And so it's important to light candles for them and make offerings for them. And I will perform some rituals tonight. And then, as they're less and less here, and their remains begin to be less and less pleasant to be around, because that will happen not immediately, but, in the next 12 hours to 15 hours, they'll have to be put away for a bit so that I can get some appropriate trees and plants and things that I'm going to put in the garden, because I was redoing the garden anyway, but they will become plant food. So they will re-enter the stream of life as food for some kind of a beautiful tree or a bush or something that's loving and wonderful and perennial. So that's how the day was. And I decided not to try and I debated whether to even do a video today, or whether to leave it. And I decided, this is your job, Nat. You're a death doula who reads tarot. So what are you going to do today? Be a death doula and read tarot and be honest about the experience. Because if we don't see an allowance of how grief can work, right? How it can work on us in terms of opening the heart and making it more making it more open and available to compassion in general, whether we're offering it to self or offering it to other. That's, you have to walk the walk. Otherwise your talk is not worth anything. That's how I feel. It's how I've always felt about things. If I'm not going to model it by doing it and living it, then what's the point of doing it at all? So here I am. Here I am. Warts and all. So I did go ahead and pull a card. It felt really appropriate today to pull it from the Bone, Stone, and Earth Flesh Tarot by Avalon Cameron and Anna Turian. And it was really interesting. I asked, what can you tell me today about self-compassion? And I got the 8 of Pentacles. And in this particular card, the girl is a smith. She's a, Avalon writes about it. So what is she called? She's called a 5, yeah, the character's name is Sable, and she's a sacred smith. So she smiths, which is the only other more common name, I think, than Jones. But she smiths, and she wants to be a sacred smith. So there she is, creating sacred fire. And I got, this one is interesting. This is, if to correspond, correlating it immediately to self-compassion to me is very immediate, because it's a practice and it's work. It's repetitive work. It's often very repetitive, and it ends up being work that if you don't do it every day, or to get a result, to ultimately begin to feel compassion for yourself or for anyone, it becomes something that you have to practice every single day. It has to become your way of thinking, your way of working. So you sort of become a sacred smith of your own heart in order to cultivate it. And, even when you're not feeling it, it's still, you really have to invest in it fully. I remember some of my favorite teachers of loving kindness and metta and self-compassion. And the loving kindness model is really the one that I know best because of the Buddhist teachers that practice it. But they'll talk about like their first retreats, where they went on a long retreat, 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks, to practice self-compassion, and struggled and really got to a point where they're like, okay, I'm just saying the words over and over and over again and meditating on them, and nothing's happening, nothing's changing. Why am I bothering? And that is part of the process. I've learned that's so much a part of the process. Like if I don't realize sometimes that I've been through a phase of not being self-compassionate until I sit down to really deeply practice it again and engage it, or re-engage it from a different place. And then I'll see where the gaps and the holes are, as I did, starting this one. I knew like, no, you need to do this because you need to re-examine where you are with self-compassion, Nat. You're not where you think you are. And I'm right. I was right about that. But what they found after doing it was that even though it felt like a slog, it felt like work, at the end of it, they were utterly shocked at how it had changed them from the inside out. And suddenly going back into life, their hearts were bursting open and feeling very full and tender and, full of empathy and joy and appreciation for others, and that loving, friendly impulse that comes from that, where you can't know a stranger because everyone you see is so beautiful all the time. It's a wonderful way to live. And it's really terrible when you realize you've pulled away from it and it's not how you feel anymore. but then it's also possible to reawaken it very quickly. So the second card I pulled just as an additional one is from the Devas of Creation. I think I do. Here it is. By Silicon Way. And the Devas of Creation gave me the ocean, in the depths of the ocean. And my astrological ascendant is Pisces, and it's at 29 degrees. So I'm still technically a first house Aries, but my ascendant is Pisces. And Julianne Victoria can tell you a lot about that, because she told me a lot of things about myself which other astrologers kind of missed because they didn't really pay attention to what that 29 degrees of Pisces really means. The depths of the ocean, that's it's the abyss. It's going into the abyss. Even in the abyss, you can find light. There's always, even at the bottom of the ocean, there is just the tiniest hint of light at the surface, and you can find it. Likewise, we hope, anyway, I hope, my intent is to develop and to cultivate compassion that is as deep as the ocean and as all-encompassing as the sky. To develop a heart as big as the universe is the goal. If there's ever a goal in Buddhism, and there really kind of isn't, there isn't, because there isn't. But the ideal goal, or the ideal, is to develop and cultivate a heart as big as the sky. So you got to get up early in the morning and practice your smithing. So, yeah. So we know now where a lot of that tower stuff was coming from earlier in the week. And the fool of taking the leap. You have to just move forward, move ahead. The scythe card that came up, I don't have those pulled, but they were in the reading from the day before. This is really about death, about you have to move towards death. You have to take a leap, into this abyss. And you can't think too hard about it or you won't move forward and do it. So that was really the case. I woke up this morning. I had a very long day yesterday. Yesterday was tough. It was a very early start day. We put in a long one yesterday. And then when I came home, suffice it to say, cats can be messy, dogs that are disabled and old can be messy, and for whatever reason, yesterday Noah, it's very unusual, but he didn't make it through until I got home, and he pooped on the carpet, and so there was a lot of mess to clean up when I got home, and the cats it's hairball season, so even though they get all the medicines and everything, there was vomit all over my bed. And there was not enough cat litters in the boxes, so I had to clean the cat litter boxes. And then after I'd been to the grocery store, go back to the grocery store for cat litter. It was just one of those nights. So I was really in need of self-compassion last night before I went to bed. And I knew it. And I knew I was really, really thin with it. And today, when I woke up, it was just clear, like, okay, the day has to be devoted to that because you're going to have to hold space for these two little boys. So that's what I did. That's it. So, I actually feel very full and very, it feels very rich. So, hope this was not too triggering for anybody. That's not the intent, certainly. It's just to kind of share the authentic experience of what's going on. And, I'll be back again tomorrow. It's going to be a very long day tomorrow again, but it'll be interesting. Maybe I'll film again at night, like after work, so that I can kind of share like where I am at the end of the day after a long day and see what happens. Because those days it's hard. Some days that's hard. The end of the day, everything's running thin. But that's usually when you really need the self-compassion. Because you've been offering it all day long. So we'll just be I'll be super authentic and just bring it in. the way it is. So tons and tons of love to all of you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. All right. Bye.